fixed or fluid. With the example of Janab Hur alayhi salam, he mentioned that how Imam Hussain alayhi salam helped him to grow his identity and form clarity upon it. In this world, we face the same identity crisis, and it is the Wilayah of Amirul Mu'mineen and Ahle Bayt alayhi salam that helps us. And the Shair says, हाथ से जब भी मुझे रह से हटाने आए, हाथ से जब भी मुझे रह से हटाने आए, लोग जब भी मुझे मुश्किल में सताने आए, हाथ से जब भी मुझे रह से हटाने आए, लोग जब भी मुझे मुश्किल में सताने आए, मैंने घबरा के कहा मौला अली अदरिकनी, मैंने घबरा के कहा मौला अली अदरिकनी, अंबिया मैंने घबरा के कहा मौला अली अदरिकनी, अंबिया बढ़ के मेरा हाथ बटाने आए, अंबिया बढ़ के मेरा हाथ बटाने आए. And without any further delay, to continue upon his topic, postmodernized world and Wilayah, I'll humbly call upon Farshori Sahab to the pulpit. Please welcome him with your loudest salawats. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Thank you very much.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. سورة الفاتحة. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وصلى الله على سيدنا مولانا حبيب إله العالمين أبو القاسم المصطفى محمد. الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا يحصي نعماءه العادون ولا يعد حقه المجتهدون، الذي لا يدرك بعد الهمم ولا يناله غوص الفتن، الذي ليس لصفته حد محدود ولا نعت موجود ولا وقت معدود ولا عجلا ممدود. أما بعد، صلوا على من هو عند الرسول أخي وابن عمي ووسي ووارثي وموضع السر أبو الحسنين مولى القونين إمام الثقلين يعصب الدين رئيس الموحدين قائد الغر المهجلين سيد المتقين وأمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. وصلى الله صلى الله عليك يا ابن رسول الله يا رحمة الواسعة very least harms or compromises many of our foundational beliefs, the way we are used to practicing them. For example, the idea that there is such thing as truth, or the notion that more recently, the notion of identity, that there can be some fixed parts of identity. Today's topic in continuing our discussion begins with one distinction, which is the following. When something which is true is treated as false, it becomes hidden. But when something which is false is treated as true, it becomes fake news. This, something which is not true, which is palpably wrong. If you go on social media, everyone is making a claim without having authority to make that claim. Okay, you go to your WhatsApp, everyone gets messages on WhatsApp and you get forwarded chains and you get forwarded messages and added to groups without knowing why I've been added, by who has added me. Well, on those groups you receive information on there which is sometimes just not true. People keep forwarding it on and on and on, assuming it must be true because someone has sent it to me. Take this idea now to the news. If something is said enough times, loud enough times, by credible enough, famous enough people, people start to believe that thing is true, even if it's not true. Words no longer have any accountability or meaning separate to what is said. Okay. In that world, a man like Yazid can stand and easily say, I am the Imam or the Khalifa. And no one can stop him, so we thought, because who's going to argue against the government, his army, his structure, and an age-old dynasty going back 6 or 7 generations in the early years? Who's going to argue against them? Abu Abdullah will argue to show you that words do have meaning. And the moment we start giving up from what is being said and not clarifying what should be said, we have fallen in the people who are the tyrants themselves. We looked at it yesterday. On the way to Karbala, he says, when haram, in that world, the one who's silent and watches it, it goes to the same punishment as the one who's doing the actual action of treating haram like haram. They're going to the same outcome. Okay. This issue that words are no longer being taken with their true meaning affects the Quran today as well. What do I mean? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. What's the problem, by the way? The problem is words don't have meaning anymore. Okay? Yazid can speak, Hussain can speak, and today someone is easily happy to say they think either both were right or neither were right. We see this around us right now. Look at the Quran. How many times, especially in your life, have you seen a new trend has come, a new school, a new phase, and all of them are trying to use Quran to justify their belief? It's as if they had an opinion already, they went to Quran with their opinion and they selected a few random verses from the Quran to justify an opinion they already had before they read the Quran. And they come with the Quran as if that is the proof for their ideas. And you know why this is so strange? People on opposite sides of an argument will use the same verse to justify completely oppositional ideas. I'll give you an example. I'll give you many examples. The ones who use the Quran to advocate for violence and terrorism and all of these things, they use the same verses of the Quran to justify terrorism, as the people who would rather appease with the government and give up all their rights and do whatever they are told by the imperialists. Same verses of the Quran, complete opposite views. Give you another example. Some people are extremely conservative when it comes to social issues, okay, very traditional, and they'll use the Quran for their beliefs, okay. Then you have guys who are very liberal in their approach, and they want to change the way we look at things like inheritance and women's rights and the rulings of non-Muslims and all those things, and they use the same verses of Quran used by the conservatives, the same verses of the Quran, okay. There are some people who are very pro-philosophy. They say that we need to use philosophy as part of our deen, and they use Quran for these arguments. Okay, the same people who are arguing against them that we should not use any philosophy to use in the religion of Islam, there are people like this, ulama like this, use the same verses of the Quran. Is this book so ambiguous? Is this book, the Quran, so inaccessible, so inconclusive? Anyone can argue anything and just bring a verse of Quran to justify their own position. Maybe you've seen it in your own life. Someone wants you to do something, they have an opinion, they bring Quran to you as if the Quran proves their opinion, when you know for a fact they believe this for their own reasons, and they just bring the Quran to give you some legitimacy for what they believe. Abu Abdullah says on Ashura, like I mentioned this a couple of times, some Muslims, some people, he says, Islam is on their tongue and their tongue alone, and it's not in their mind or their heart, and they just use this religion for whatever they want already in their life. Although this issue has existed for a long time in our books, for example, think of the early Akhbariya. The Akhbariya would say that because some verses of Quran are so ambiguous, unless there's a hadith to understand the verse, we're not going to interpret the Quran. We need some Imam or Prophet or someone to explain the verse because we don't know. We have opinions like this, but in general, this is an issue of postmodernism, where in the world, anyone can make any claim, and they can use any hujjah, any proof they want, and there's no authority left for their claims. This then begs the question to all of us in today's majalis we're going to look at today. Who speaks for the Quran with authority? Where is that source or that origin that when everyone disagrees about one thing in the Quran, that at least this one origin we go to can rely on us some certainty of what Allah wants from us in this world? Because the elephant in the room is that postmodernists think that today Islam has nothing to do with your life anymore. Religion revealed 1400 years ago, Quran revealed 1400 years ago, Prophet died 1400 years ago. So why are we, who want to be taken seriously in the world today, going to rely on a religion that is so old and ancient? So we need to make the Quran accessible, authoritative and conclusive. In today's majlis, I'd like to go through what is the correct method of interpreting Quran according to the Quran itself. And then we will see, when everyone has different opinions, how does going back to one source and origin clear our mind and give us clarity of what God wants from us on this earth. And by the way, this whole lecture, this whole topic can only exist because of Hussain ibn Ali alayhi salam. Because when the Quran's interpretation was at its most deadly position, when no one was following the tafsir of the Quran, a man stood and said, I would rather give my blood to this religion than watch the Quran being misused for a day longer. And we'll end by seeing how Abu Abdullah helps us in this. That's our discussion. If you guys are with me, inshallah, if I have your support and if I have your help for the next time that I'm with you, sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Alright, all of you who are listening, are you guys with me, inshallah? Do I have your attention? You guys at the back, brothers over there, are you guys with me? Can I get going, inshallah? Thank you, my dear brothers. Okay, when you interpret a single verse of the Quran, you cannot simply say, I have an opinion, here's a verse, believe it. There is an intense science of tafsir, stages of depth of analysis through which an alim must go through to understand every single dimension of one verse of Quran. And only when they've gone through this entire process can they bring you at least an answer, what does God want from you? Okay, this is the ilm of tafsir. Ayatollah Ja'far Subhani, one of our great ulama right now, has a good piece of research where he says, look, in the colonial time, when Muslim lands were subjugated by the colonialists, Muslims were not allowed or given access to the true ilm of the Quran. They were kept away from it. Libraries were shut down. The imperialists installed their own ulama and their own political leaders, and normal Muslims, non-ulama, had no access to the inner reality of the Quran. But he says times have changed now. Me, you, all of us can understand tafsir of the Quran. Let me give to all of you a quick summary of just how much work of an alim goes into interpreting just one ayah of Quran, to show to us tafsir is important and there is some authority which is needed to understand one verse of the Quran, inshallah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The first consideration you must bring to any verse of Quran is a strict and stringent knowledge of Arabic grammar. The Quran will contain in it af'al, verbs, asma, names, and also huruf, individual particles. And each of those has 100 subcategories of how a verb or an ism or a harak can work in one ayah of Quran. We need to make sure, because this Quran, we've been told, it is like al-mizan, it's a balance. Not a single word is too much or too little from a single ayah of the Quran, which means there is some reason for every single word, every combination within at least one verse of Quran. Now imagine the whole of the Quran. Every single word has its own purpose. The first science needed is the ilm of nahu and sarf and balagha. Arabic syntax, morphology, rhetoric, to know how to interpret every letter of that Quran. And then they can understand what God is at least trying to say in one verse before we get to all of the other rules. So that's the first one, strict Arabic grammar. The second is Arabic vocabulary. These are not the same thing. Grammar is the rules. Vocabulary is the different meanings for one word. In the Arabic language, similar to Urdu and actually in many ways Farsi and to some degree English, one word can have so many meanings. One word. Mawla, as they say to us, has over 30 meanings. We know which one was meant on Ghadir, but it's true, there are more than 30 meanings for one word. Wali has many meanings. How can someone go to the Quran when each word has so many abilities for so many possibilities and tell you which one they know it was? So the second science need, and we have many great books on this, Kitab al-Mufradat and other books, in which you have the meaning of which word means what meaning in what verse of what chapter of the Quran. Okay, once you've gone through these two steps, then you are able to go through the third one, which is to do tafsir of Quran by Quran. This book is Tibyan ala kulli shay. It makes everything clear for the reader. One verse in the beginning could be answered by a verse at the end. In one area in the Quran, the verse mentions Allah rained matar min as-sama. Allah rained rain from the earth, from the sky, coming to Qawm Lut. He never said what the rain was. Elsewhere in the Quran we read it was the matar of aswad, a matar of stone. One verse answers a previous verse. All through the Quran it is self-referential. Now let someone come to you on a WhatsApp message telling you, I believe in this, here's a verse of the Quran. How does that verse link to the rest of the Quran? Or they don't know because they have their own opinion to you. So the third type is this. Every verse corresponds to another verse. This is one of the many miracles of the Quran. It is completely symmetrical. It is like a living organism, breathing, and each breath is connected with the sinews of one verse to another verse. An alim goes through this process. We need this for tafsir. Let's keep going. An alim also must have strict knowledge of the ahadith. Because does the Quran not say, Ma atikum, we don't give you this except that we send you someone with whom it is interpreted? So one who reads Quran must know the life of the Holy Prophet because maybe he's spoken about this verse. And the Quran is sent with him. It's not sent separately to him. Okay, Arabic language. The idea that you have to say the Quran bil Quran. In addition to this, we must also know that why was that verse revealed? The Sha'n and Nuzul. So now we have to go back to history and find out what happened at that time for this precise verse to be revealed at that time to those people. If you don't know this, how do you know the Quran? When the Quran mentions those الثلاث الذي أخلفوا, those three people who stayed behind from where? For who? Why did they stay behind? When Quran mentions Abasa, the one who frowned. Who frowned? Why did he frown? At whom did he frown? These things can only be known in the context when they were revealed. I can't know Quran without Sha'n and Nuzul. Okay, let's keep going. Then we need to know when looking at the verse of the Quran that we know all of the themes of the Quran. Because how do I know which theme this one verse fits into? The verse reads, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. لَوْ كَانَ, if we did not do this, مِنْ عِنْدِ غَيْرِ اللَّهِ, if Quran came from someone other than Allah, then how would you know in that verse what the true akhbar would be? Allah in the Quran reveals many themes, and therefore you have many thematic tafasir. For example, life and death in the Quran, thematic tafsir. Happiness in the Quran, thematic tafsir. Ahl al-Bayt in the Quran, lengthy thematic tafsir. All of them are taking a theme and selecting all the verses which fit in that one precise theme. If I pick one verse, how do I know which theme it fits to, which theme it doesn't fit into? Okay, let's keep going. Also, a person must know when reading the signs of the Quran, what was the culture of the time when it was revealed. At the time of the Holy Prophet Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there was a certain culture, and that culture had certain norms known as urf, what was good and bad at that time. Many of the ways Quran is revealed is answering those people at that time about how they lived. So if you didn't know that they would bury daughters at that time, you won't know why it's so important Islam corrects that wrongdoing. If you didn't know that at that time they had not listened to Nabi Isa and only a few were on Tawheed, you wouldn't know the value of someone like Abu Talib or Abdul Muttalib at that time when no one else is following Tawheed. So you've got to know the time at that time. Also you've got to know the tone of the Quran at that time. In some verses, only 4 times are we addressed all together, Ya Bani Adam. Only 4 times. Otherwise it's Ya Ayyuhan Nas, Ya Ayyuhalladhina Amanu, there are different ones. Each tone adds a different variety to that verse. Okay. Hazrat Subhani says you must also know to some degree philosophy and science when going to the Quran, because there are some verses like in Surah Hadid where Imam Sajjad alayhi salam he looks at those and says, he says to those people in front of him, you won't understand this verse. This verse was revealed to those people of tafakkur from Akhir al-Zaman. Only they will actually understand these verses, Surah Hadid. So some of the Quran is purposely for those who think more deeply than others. All of it is Hudan lil Alameen, all of it is a guidance, but some are for those who are willing to go deeper. Okay. Parts of the Quran as well are also for those people who understand all the prophets who came before. Because Quran is musaddiqan lahu, it confirms that which was true before. So I have to know Isa and Musa, ala Nabiyina and Ibrahim to know why the prophet fits into that category of those Anbiya. Okay. Ayatollah Subhani, in going through his list, gives 15 individual considerations one scholar must go through to interpret one verse of Quran. That's how deep this science, it actually goes much